Welcome to the Carpenter Summerall Null Blackburn Hartzig cabin, the oldest cabin known, either in Catawba or Lincoln County. Moved here in 2009, donated by Rick Hartzig and his sister Susan. It's a very interesting cabin, the fact that it was surrounded by, in the back, by several rooms, a bedroom, a kitchen. This side, on the east side, it had 2 bedrooms upstairs and downstairs. And it dates, it's 1763, and it's dated in 2 places. Ironically, the second place that it was dated was not known. Lincoln County Historical Association hired somebody from Greenville, South Carolina to date it. He could date it no earlier than the early 1800s. It's also dated on the brick, 1763, on probably about 6 feet up on the brick chimney behind us. When I was putting it back together, this is the first cabin that I've ever moved that had a wainscoting and a chair rail in it, which was put on with not only square nails, but there were some rose and T nails, meaning that it was dated probably at the latest early 1800s. When I was putting this wall back, my wife came in to bring me lunch. The window was perfect. The sun was perfect through the window. And she said, look, there's a date. Behind there's a date, 1763, which you can see. We have a little light that you can see by the fireplace on the left, 176. Part of the 3 is cut out, which I cut the logs out as I was building the chimney. So there's no question in my mind, this cabin does date 1763. When we moved this cabin, we put a chain to the chimney and pulled it down, and there were 1,000,000 bricks broken and scattered throughout the whole area that the chimney had fallen in, and we 3 or 4 of us looked for an hour for that dated brick and weren't able to find it. The next day Rick brought the brick back and said, y'all need this brick, I think it'd look nice in this chimney. So they found it for us, and we put it back in its original position. Another interesting finding was, if you notice, the log about 7 or 8 feet up has notches where the original rafters were used for the front porch. There's same notches on the back porch. But when I moved it, the bottom log, which was probably 2.5 feet in width, had rotted out, and I didn't have a log that wide. And rather than go back with the same roof line, I elevated it a couple feet above the original line for the front and the back porch. It also told me that they didn't have that kitchen in the back. This was a nice full front porch, and the original cabin had a nice full back porch. Yeah. Notice the porch rails are all original, all mortised and pegged in, and something I've never seen, the supporting posts have 4 little feet, which makes sense. You don't have the water getting under it to rot it. And the interesting story, again, with this particular cabin is I had promised my wife for 4 or 5 years that I wouldn't move another cabin, and I finally convinced her, even after moving a few after I had promised, I said, I promise I'll not move another one. Well, Rick Hartzig knew that I had said I wouldn't move another one, so he went to my 2 sons and convinced him that I had to have this cabin because it was the oldest cabin in the village, plus the oldest cabin in either county. So one year for Christmas, following his talking to my 2 boys, I get this Christmas present with all my little grandchildren going around, and I'm shaking it and figuring out what in the world's in here. I open it up, they're Lincoln logs, and a little note says, Mom says you can have 1 more cabin. You know, taking it down after we had removed all the outside buildings, if you notice from the earlier pictures, it's a full 2-story cabin. Well, when we took it down, ironically, when we examined it very closely, we had a dovetail going into a window casing, which is very rare, unusual, and the logs on the top 2 logs all the way around were basically turned around backwards. The weather side was inside, which you didn't see because it was weatherboarded on the outside and paneled on the inside. It took a lot of thinking to figure out actually what they had done. Actually what they had done, they were a very small family, and as they got more children or maybe more money, they decided to go to a full 2-story, and rather than tear it down and start all over again, it was much easier to raise the logs two more logs high. And now, as you see in the picture, you have a full stand-up 2 stories. I left those logs off. This is the original 1.5 story, low ceiling upstairs, and you can come in and we'll have the Hartzig family talk to you about the history and their family living in this particular cabin.
My name is Susan Hartzog Stewart, and this is my brother Rick Hartzog, and we inherited this house in 2008 from our uncle, and it has been in our family for many, many years.
The house was originally built in 1763 by a Joseph Carpenter, who was buried within a mile from where the house was located. Joseph Carpenter sold the house to a John Blackburn in 1823, and he and his wife lived in it until 1858, and he sold the house to our great-great-grandfather in 1858, James Summerall.
So we inherited this house in 2008, and Lincoln County, this was believed to be the oldest house in Lincoln County, and they had shown some interest in the house. We had heard about Hart Square and sent word to Dr. Hart's son that we had this house. So Dr. Hart was real excited and came out and looked at it in December of 2008 and brought us over to see Hart Square.
Some of the items in the house are original pieces of furniture that came from the house, like the table you see, the small table over in the corner, the clock hanging on the wall, which always hung in that place as far as we can remember. It's a 1823 Seth Thomas clock with wooden gears. Some of the items in the other rooms are also original pieces to the house.
One of the things that made us want to give our house to Dr. Hart, and it made really clear to us when we came out to look at Hart Square, we knew the house would be taken care of and preserved, and it would be somewhere our children and grandchildren and even maybe their children come to visit. And we're just very proud to have it here because we can come back here, spend time together, reminisce, just like looks like it did when we were growing up.
One of the first things that most people notice when they come into the house is the width of the pine boards. They're between 14 and 15 inches wide, which is quite unique, and also the original mantel board. Originally, when Dr. Hart dismantled the house, the mantel board and the paneling in the house were the same color. Dr. Hart cleaned the paneling in the house but left the mantel board the original color just to show the contrast from hundreds of years of smoke.
One of the first things that I noticed when we came here after Dr. Hart had put the house up was when we opened the front door, this living room looked pretty much the same as it did as we grew up coming here, but the smell, it had the very same smell as what I remember when I was a child coming into this house. We also loved to always go to the staircase and climb on the stairs. They were so steep, and as a child, they just looked like they would never end.
Hanging on the wall, we have the original deeds to the house, which my wife found in an old blanket chest, which is in the next room. We have the original deed, which was Joseph Carpenter in 1821 selling the house or signing the house over to John Blackburn. Then we also have the handwritten deed from John Blackburn to mine and my sister's great-great-grandfather, James Summerall.
The history of this house has been very important to us. Our Uncle Wade Hartzog, who lived in this house until 1995, he and our Aunt Mary, our dad's brother and sister, lived there. The family, the children were brought back to this house. They were 2 of 5 children who were orphaned. My Uncle Wade was 14, our dad was 13, and they were brought back here to be raised by the aunts and uncles. Uncle Wade always tried to make sure we knew the history of this house, and I wish we would have paid better attention sometimes because he tried to tell us a lot of history about it. That's how we knew there was a log house here.
Dr. Hart found the original kettle that came from the house, and the kettle is actually sitting on a trivet which was originally used in the house. We also found in the smokehouse, digging around in the ground, a half-a-gallon pottery jug that was made and stamped by David Hartzog. And the larger piece beside of it was his son Sylvanus Hartsoe's work, who was also a well-known potter. If you notice on the wall, there's an example of 3 different kind of nails that were found in the house when Dr. Hart was dismantling it. Rosehead nails, which are the oldest, T-nails, and square nails.
Now we've moved over to the only bedroom on this floor. When Rick and I inherited the house and decided to donate the house to Hart Square, to Dr. Hart, we decided it would only be right to give our Aunt Mary's bed, which is a corded bed, and it has rope that ties it together. Aunt Mary had converted it, of course, with a mattress, but Dr. Hart took it back to its original state. We're very happy it can be here. Dr. Hart also used the original windows whenever he put the house back together, and then you can see the weightiness of the window. And in the house we brought along the Testament that has some of the dates recorded in it from our family history. It's got births and marriages and different dates, so Rick and I learned a lot from this book about our family history also. Another piece that records the deaths of our family is hanging over the bed in this bedroom. We also have the blanket chest in the corner of the room, and that's where the deeds were found for this house. Both of these pieces are original to this house. Another large piece of furniture in the room is the large secretary desk, which Dr. Hart found and included as a nice addition to this house.
At the top of the stairs, you'll first see the spinning wheel, which was found in a closet under the stairway. It had been dismantled and hung on the wall. And right past it, you'll see a chest of drawers, and then a blanket chest, which is probably one of the oldest pieces of furniture in Hart Square Village, which dates back to the late 1700s. It was put together with wooden pegs. The other chest, which is a little larger, was dated around 1840.
Upstairs there are 3 corded beds, and one of the quilts on one of the beds is original to the house. All of our great aunts and our grandmother, and I'm sure her mother before her, all quilted and sewed, and this was a lovely example of their homemade and handmade work. One of the most important things about this house to me was the fact that our grandfather passed away in 1928. He left behind 5 children and a wife. And in 1930, on Christmas Day, our grandmother passed away, Catherine Null Hartzog. She left 5 children behind, and her 2 sisters and brother brought those 5 children back to this house to grow up together so they wouldn't be separated. Our uncle, the oldest, was 14 years old at that time, and he lived in this house until 1995.
This small smokehouse was moved in 2009 and actually was located behind the Null House, 1763. It was donated by the Hartzog family. This is an original raft located on the back wall of this smokehouse. The rafters were pegged together, and careful inspection reveals T-nails that attach to the roof to the rafters. This strongly suggests a late 18th century construction, which would be very similar in the date of 1763 of the Null cabin. Here we've got an unusual type of well, which really makes a lot of sense. They were found real early, and you see a lot of them still in Europe in existence. To explain it, what you do is you pull the cantilever, the Y here, the locust post down, and as I go down, the bucket drops down in the water. When it's full, a child actually can bring the water back up because it counterbalances and it can pull it up even with 1 or 2 fingers.